The rookies are back. We have mid prices in new roles, and we also have some underpriced primos off their buy that have probably bottomed out in their price cycle. Welcome back to another trade targets video, this time for round 14, as we do an in-depth analysis into the 4 or 5 rookies that are in a good price range, I would say. Most of them being sub sort of that 350k marker, which is a really good downgrade from those sort of like 500, 600k guys. And then we have a couple in the sort of 6 to 800k range in more pricier lines, I would say, that are mid prices that are putting out decent scores in really good roles, mostly that halfback flanker role. And then we have the underpriced primos who have basically had 1 or 2 bad games in their cycle and are pretty much bottomed out. I'm looking at you, Zach Butters. But anyway, let's jump into this video here. So first of all, the first guy on the list for the lowest break even is Nick Madden. He hasn't had his bye, which, I mean, so hasn't Zach Johnson, and Hugh Jackson has, which is a positive, but also in cash generation, is it that positive? We'll have to see when team sheets get announced, but I think most will be going for Zach Johnson. But Nicholas Madden, minus 12 break even. He scored an 80. The only problem is if we go to the AFL injury list, let's just go to this. You will see, I believe, Briggs is 2 rounds away. If we go here, 2 rounds away, they have round 16 by, I believe. So that must mean that he's going to get 2 more games, and then Briggs will be back for round 17, which makes sense. So yeah, that isn't the greatest for Madden, but 2 more games for him. He's probably gonna project to make another. You would expect if he scores 60s, he makes another 125k, but you would expect him to make a good, well, he's playing Oscar McKinnon, so that might be a 60, and also Jared Woods. But say he scores 80s, you probably expect 80k of cash gen, which would be 160k. So that would put him at 436, let's put it at, and then you'd have to trade, which you'd be trading for a dead pick, would you? Or would you have the ability, you'd probably have the ability to trade him to a any position rookie, which would be good. But 160k of cash gen for a top end scoring for him, best case scenario, isn't really what you probably want. That's why we sort of result to a Zach Johnson, who is another 13k more expensive, has 1 less break even in the negatives. So he has an minus 11 break even, but he has sort of the score on the board. He had 64% time on ground for a 34 against the Lions, and then had a 79 for in the last game. And obviously he does have that bye in round 16, which is a little bit annoying, but it looks also with the injury front for Eston that he could actually stabilize himself in the side before they come back, which would be good. But anyway, let's just look it up here. And there we go. Zach Johnson should be right. So if we look at this, you'll see he actually was red vested in this game here. Probably should have played more. And then he got obviously a massive bump up in the Carlton game, which was really good to see. Had just more touches of the footy. I think if we look here, there's not really too much of a difference in his sort of heat map. Maybe a little bit more on the wing in this game here. But that I think is just more touch where he got his touches. So I'd need to double check that. Where exactly you played, because you can see that and you kind of just see that, yeah, he just ended up with a touch here or there, but it felt like more majority of his ball was 50-50 in this game, and then it feels more concentrated, even though it isn't in this one. But yeah, definitely feels more like he was I would say almost at half back in this one, and then this one it feels like a tendency of more a winger role here, just with where the touches are in comparison to the wing and halfback you would expect. So I think it's a really positive role, and we've seen here as well him be able to rack it up in the VFL with a 92.8 in 6 games. That is huge. So I think he's the one. It sucks that he still has the bye to run because that probably puts Hugh Jackson into contention. But there's just so many, especially with Jackson, with Jason Horne-Francis coming back in. I'd be worried here. And onto him, as a matter of fact. And you can see here, 43% before the bye for a 26, and then 76 for a 62. So he's probably going to at least get a sub vest, but I just can't tell you if it's going to be a green or a red. And either way, that's probably not the greatest. Obviously, starting in the green is worse than ending in the red, in my opinion. But yeah, I just do not think that Hugh Jackson will be able to get into that best 22, even though he had a pretty decent performance just because Jason Horne-Francis has been made available. And I don't know about their other injuries. I don't think they had any other injuries, and they might even have someone coming back. I need to double check that. But yeah, I just think that Hugh Jackson's probably going to be the unlucky one, and Horne-Francis will take over from him, whereas I don't think Zach Johnson has anyone coming back, given that Redmond was listed as 2 to 3 weeks, I want to say. So yeah, there's at least that for Zach Johnson. So I think he is the safe pick for this one. I actually thought they would have, one of these guys would have a forward status, but they don't. Caleb Smith on the buy, he is priced at 375k, so a little bit more expensive, and we do expect Jaden Short to come back soon, so I wouldn't be touching that. Then you've got also Isaac Keeler as well, what was he at? 326k. He averages 40, but a couple of sub vests in there, and then a couple of stinkers. And the last couple of weeks he's gone really well. I expect him to score sort of in the 40s and 50s, which is probably going to amount to him getting up to about 400k. So I just don't value him as a long-term sort of available guy, I would say. In terms of cash generation, it's going to be a slow burn. And at this point, you really want, especially in fantasy, just being able to sort of trade each week, etc. You really want these guys to be gaining cash really, really quickly. You want them to be gaining that 200k, because that 200k will get you that upgrade. Because say for instance, Angus Sheldrick, I think is what, either 591 or is, let's just quickly look here. Angus Sheldrick 623. If we project his price cash generation next week, in a couple of weeks time, they're projecting him to go up another 60k. 60k gets him to 680k. I expect that to be even higher than that. They're expecting 69s and he's gone 80s. So expect another 20, 30k on that in the next couple of weeks. So that gets him up to 700k. Suddenly, if you're at 700k, then you have a guy that's priced at, say, 450, 500k as a rookie that's done it in 3-4 weeks. Suddenly, you're able to get these type of Angus Sheldricks basically up to a primo, which is absolutely huge. So anyway, back to this quickly here. And that's pretty much it for the rookies. Lual, I think, was just a late in. But then again, we also know that Redmond is listed now, I believe, 2 to 3 weeks. Let's actually just show you this Essendon report. If we go here, let's go Redmond, 3 weeks for the calf. Ridley, 3 weeks. Zach Reed, 4 weeks. Nick Ewan, 5, not going to matter. Mackay, TBC, Langford, 4. Harry Jones, TBC, Hayes' season. El Hawley, another 4 weeks, so that's another rebounding defender. Edwards is a forward, but a season for him. Durham suspended, so that's also good for potentially Sardis, but also Merritt back in the midfield potentially. Draper, season. Cox, TBC, and Nick O'Brien, season. So yeah, basically it's either tools or flankers that have been knocked out for Essendon, which gives better hope for Lual and also the likes of Zach Johnson. And then, yeah, obviously Angus Clark looked a lot better, but I wouldn't be trading him in now because he's 399k. I'd be getting in his teammate in Zach Johnson. So there's that. And I don't think there's anyone else here that looks lined up for a debut or actually has a decent break even, etc. Or I should say return, not debut, because they've obviously played. But yeah, not many looking at a return, I would say. Cochrane injured long-term. Will Lorenz, Hugh Jackson's ahead of him. Will Hayes on the bye. Lucas Camporelli, I think, is getting beaten out by his brother in the VFL. Lewis Hayes' season. Mitchell on the bye, but Gordon's back post-bye, so that should stamper that out. Especially also Matty Roberts is also out. Back, you would expect. Oscar McDonald hasn't played in a while. Ted Colosi is just a guy that I wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole, given that he's a late in, late out, etc. chaos. So that leads us on to the coach's choice. And then I also want to look at sort of the 600, 700K range, because there's quite a lot of players there. So Johnson, obvious rookie. That makes sense. Kennedy is the obvious forward target. Makes sense. Then you have McCarthy. It looks like he's lined up for a debut. Because we have Zach Johnson, I am willing to wait a week with McCarthy. 2 weeks with McCarthy, because then I get him post-bye and it's fine. I don't basically put a trade in on a guy that's not going to be able to play, because there's also a chance that in the wildest scenario, I can almost just do a Zach Johnson to a McCarthy or a Clark to a McCarthy, and then suddenly that works perfectly. So that's what I'm just looking at there and going, I could do that scenario there and that works. Or I can do McCarthy, he's probably going to be 280, 275K. I expect, if we just do, let's get rid of these ones. If I just show you why I'm predicting roughly that marker, if we go to fantasy price projector here and we go McCarthy, here we go. And I say he's going to score a 75, 271K. Okay. If we say he's going to score an 80, 275K. So that's what I was saying with him. 75, 80. If he goes around there, he's going to be in that 270s to 280K, somewhere around that marker. So if we say that, then Angus Clark potentially gets 2 more runs at it, I believe. I'm right in saying that they get 2 more runs at it. 2 more runs at it, even for the likes of a Zach Johnson scoring 50s, which we hope he scores more. He goes up 100K. Let's look at Clark here. So some people would be still trading him in, some trading him out. But Clark scoring 57s goes up 47.32. So he gets another 37K. So there's a chance that I can go from Clark to McCarthy, make 200K. And then suddenly that Angus Sheldrick upgrade in another week's time, when he's potentially 660K, probably wouldn't do it then. But you have that type of scenario there. That's what I'm sort of looking at and going, I could do that, etc. there. Or I could potentially just be upgrading some of my shocker of shockers of players that have just not really performed. Then we get on to Doherty. This is one that I kind of wanted to almost talk on my own segment about, but I think he's a really, really good option. If we look at Doherty, and I'm going to go and actually bring up this and bring up his heat maps, because I think, if I'm correct in saying this, I might even be able to show you this in general. But if we look here and we look at CBAs, he's always had CBAs, but we look here, he's had 3 games and averaged 98 with 0 CBAs. He averaged 98 Supercoach. That's irrelevant. 90.7 fantasy. That's layered. That's why. No wonder. That is me being me. I was wondering what was going on there. Let's go to Doherty and actually look up his stats. So let's look this up. So when he has 0 CBAs, and we have to remember that COVID was COVID. There were shortened quarters. There were only, you have to times it by, I think, 1.25, I think, from memory. But yeah, and so if we look at this and we go, let's look at this. So 14 games in 2021 for a 98.6, he had 0% CBAs. Then in 2022, he's done a 110.3 from 7% CBAs. And then in 2023, from 22% CBAs, he's done a 102. So then let's look at this, and then obviously had the injured start to injured start to 2024. Well, basically a full injury there. So if we look at this and go, we want the 0% CBA games, and then we'll also, that's just going to be that, but I will adjust it as well because he was coming back from an injury there, I believe. Was he? I think so. And then you've got here, and that's another sub game. Then you got this one here. You've got these ones here. We'll do a sub 10% CBAs because I think that'll show it pretty dramatically what I've sort of thought. Because yeah, you can already just see this sort of developing, I would say, in terms of his scoring right now. He is currently, from this metric, averaging 101.4 through 35 games. Just looking at this, and he did have a little bit of a slow start in 2021, or a slow patch, I should say. But you can basically see this, that he is averaging 101.5 in this role. And then, yeah, and then we will get rid of that there. So here, let's, there we go. Because he was, I believe, injured in this game. Yeah, you can see 17%. Tog is definitely an injury. So 101.3 from 51 games. If we go back here and we go back to average, and then we go to the positions and we go midfielder, because he's played, I don't know whether he will qualify for the games threshold to get defender status, which would be quite annoying. But if we look at this, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So he's roughly, with that average, he's roughly 16th or 17th best midfielder. And you are getting him for, if we look at this, you are getting him priced at about 80 for a guy that could be a top 16 or 17 in his line if he does what we hope he does. And that's across multiple years. And I might have even did I have any games where he had really bad Tog in them? I don't think so. They all look pretty good. That's why I'm almost inclined to say that this 74% was a little bit off. Yeah, you can see that was his return game. If we remove that, he's up to 102. So if you remove just one game of 70 odd Tog, where it was his return game, and I know it was his return game, then he's up to 102. If we then put that back to perspective of midfielders, if we go here to midfielders, a 102 puts him above George Hewitt, I believe, above Tom Liberatore, and puts him in Tom Green and Tom Liberatore area. If this is 17, that's 16, 15, so he'd be clear 15th. Clear 15th best for 81. You're getting 20 points of upside and a potential guy that could be a keeper, because we're seeing Zach Merritt slide in his new role. We've got even, and that's top 15. Sinclair makes it 14. Kennedy makes it 13. Sheasel makes it 12. Rosie makes it 11. Bailey Smith makes it 10. So he is a top 10 midfielder. A top 10 midfielder priced at 81. That's why there's value there. And that's why he should be the number one trading guy, because that role is going to stick. That role is going to stick because he's played there before. They've got their midfield sorted with Chera, Cripps, Hewitt, etc. in there, and also Sam Walsh to a certain extent. They need him at halfback to be able to move the ball. And I think it's a new sort of directive from Carlton as well. So that's why I think he is the number one guy. He also has the easiest games where he could genuinely score 50 points in the last quarter of these two games against West Coast and also North Melbourne. Let's look at DFS for these ones as well, just to show you. If I go DVP matchup, I believe. Oh, it's gonna want my login there quickly, so I should just quickly do this for you guys to get this sorted here so that I can actually show you guys this. There we go. And then yeah, so this, I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that these are gonna be defense first position. Here we go. This is the one that I wanted. Designated kickers. We got here West Coast are a plus 3.2. North Melbourne are actually a minus 3.3 in the last 10. If we go to last 5, I want to see what it is. You got West Coast at a plus 5, and you got North at a plus 1. So North might have just had something, but that restricted them in the last, that they were restrictive in the last 10. But in the last 5, they are both positive teams with some of the best matchups. Richmond and Essendon also are sort of the best ones. And when does he have them? He's got Melbourne. He's also got Essendon in the final round as well. So he does have those matchups as well. and then Sydney, Melbourne, Hawthorn are the other ones. He's also got the Hawks, the Melbourne there as well. So he's got pretty much a subset of most of the easy games, Gold Coast as well as positive. And you see he's also got Gold Coast. So he's got pretty much, in the last 10, he's got about 6 of the easiest 8, I would say. Which, yeah, that's just really positive. And that's why I think he's the pick of the week. And I know that I say that when there's Zach Butters sitting on the table for 920k, which is quite crazy to say. 936k, sorry. So that's an average of 92. Hugh Jackson, we talked about. Colby McKercher, a lot of people looking at him at 630k. It presents so much value. You just have a feeling, and I'm going to say this and it's going to suck. I have a feeling he gets moved next week anyway. If you look at his actual scoring quarter by quarter, and we go here to McKercher, you'll see what happened when the likes of Harry Sheezel moved behind the ball, 10 meters behind the ball rather than 10 meters in front of the ball. Let's just look at this. Toggle quarter by quarter, 17, 20, 36, 18. So it's actually not the worst. I actually thought it was more lopsided than that. He actually got a little bit better. Surprisingly, he went for a 54-point second half. So maybe there is something there. The problem with it, I just believe, is that we've seen in round 11 that this game was an anomaly where he had 10 tackles. He's not gone more than, 5 in his career? Something like that. Looks like 5. Oh, he had, 9 as a junior when he was playing on ball. But he hasn't had more than 5 in his AFL career. And he's gone and dropped 10. Take 5 off that, and you suddenly have him at 91. Anyway. So 91, okay, makes sense there. So I just look at this with the likes of McKercher and go, I just wonder here if the role is going to actually stick, because he's had 35 touches, right? That's an enormous amount of touches, 1 mark, 1 tackle. I just don't know if the role sticks. And that's the real problem with McKercher there, that he scores... he scored well against Richmond in the 2 games that he's played. And he's played well against the likes of West Coast in the 2 games that he played. But you can see a lot of the other opponents, he's played a little bit more so and not really done the greatest. He does have, who's he got coming up this week? I think it's Freo. Freo, I don't know if has he played Freo? He has played Freo and averaged 76 in the 1 game that he played against them. Where I think he played halfback and average and got 22 touches, 6 marks. So I just don't know if the role sticks long term, especially if they actually find their senses and put Sheezel at not halfback exactly, but more that trailer behind the ball, which is sort of the role that McKercher feels like has been having in the last little bit. So there will be interesting to see what they do with that. I just think there's too much role changing for me to want to jump on at the moment. Zach Butters, I think this one is kind of the obvious primo to jump on. He is playing Melbourne. If we look at DVP here for inside mids, we can see Melbourne +5. Last 10 games, you've got Melbourne are a plus 2.06. And yeah, you can basically see they tagged one guy here in Nick Dacos. The Rowbottom went low as well. So Heaney still went really well for Sydney in that game. They tried to tag Will Ashcroft here, it looks like, and Lockie Neal, you would have expected, went 101. I'm just kind of looking at the main guys here and going, they tagged Jai Newcomb here as well. Harley Reid had a stinker, they tagged him. Tim Taranto had a stinker, they tagged him. Matt Johnson had a stinker because it's Matt Johnson, but Caleb Sarong got tagged, 79. And then Max Holmes for a 68 from -31. You can see that basically what's happening with Melbourne is they're tagging the main guy, and the main guy is lucky to get to parity with his usual average, and then the other guys around him are going off. So do they tag Butters? Do they tag Rosie? That is the main question. And I have a feeling that Sydney next week will tag Rosie, because it's easier for James Jordan to tag a halfback flanker than an inside mid. But I don't know about Melbourne. So that'll be interesting. And so he's priced at 92 or so, and he's got a 120 break even. I think you can wait a week on Butters. Like 120 break even, I think you can wait another week. So then you almost go and look at other guys and other areas and think, is there anyone else in that sort of 900k range or so that you can target and attack here and really look at grabbing. And I mean, Sam Walsh had a 105, looks all right, has West Coast, North Melbourne in the next couple. Could he turn it around? You got potentially bringing back a Caleb Daniel. I'd probably almost wait a week with him. And let's actually just look at sort of, oh, we've got it set to midfielders. That doesn't help. I was going to say, why is it only midfielders? But yeah, you can kind of see everyone else here. Not actually anyone else really that important, I would say, almost. And then you have Luke Jackson. This could be interesting off the bye, playing North Melbourne. He's gone, what, in the last couple, 100. He's gone 92, 98, 106, 116. He's now playing North Melbourne with Cherry. That'll be interesting to see how he goes. How's he gone against them in the past? He averages against North Melbourne 70.4. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that goes. He could be a target as well for those people looking for potentially a way in which they can look to get, I guess, help when Max is out. You can get to that extra player, which could be big. And also Luke Jackson, like 67 break even, 904K. I think he will be a top of the line forward. So that can help you with getting rid of like a Rankin or someone like that as well, who could be really, really poor, and getting rid of all those other guys there. So Luke Jackson is actually potentially on the radar there, I would say, as well, just due to him. Yeah, 904K. I think it's really, really cheap for what he does give out. Especially when, in this sort of new ruck rover role. If we look at players here as well, if we go to Jackson, now that he has the likes of, now that he's got the likes of, where is it? Luke Jackson here. Now that he's got the likes of Sean Darcy back fit, you can see he's got 64% ruck contest, but 76% CBAs this year. He's basically been in and around the CBAs 92%, 94%, 92, 84, sorry, and then 64 here as well. So in the last 3 weeks, he has had, basically, you can almost look at it like this. When he gets huge CBAs, he was also injured in this game. So if we take out that game, when he gets above when he gets above 60% CBAs, he's averaging 101.6. That is humongous. If we even go back to when he was doing it last year, when he was getting above 60% CBAs, this one here, this one here, this one here, you can see it kind of holds to a certain extent. If we just look at it here, these ones here as well, when he was solo rucking, I know that there's a difference between solo rucking and rucking with Sean Darcy, but you can just dramatically see the difference as well. I think it just gets him around the ground. He looks a lot better and gets a lot of those disposals up, as you can see, because some of these games, if you actually look at the ruck contest, they are underweighted, I would say, compared to his CBAs. You can see it here as well. He played a similar role here. Here as well, similar role, and he went 103. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how that goes, but I have a feeling he's a guy that could really, really pop off and really score well in the next couple of weeks, but also give you a break from potentially a Butters tag game against the likes of Melbourne. Because if they tag Butters to even just a 100 or a 105, he goes down further. He plays Sydney the week after. You can probably almost wait another week there with that, and then has Chincotta as well, and then starts to open up. So you could almost target Butters post round 7, post the buys, and target him there when his run suddenly opens up, because he's got Sydney and also Carlton there. If we look at Butters here as well, just quietly here, because yeah, that is basically what we're gonna look at, because the two guys that I wanted to focus on, I will touch on Brett Daniels for like 30 seconds, but I don't really need to. You can see Sydney. If we go to Sydney here, when he plays Sydney, he's gone 114, 68, 128, 83, 44, 52. So when he gets tagged, he basically does shocking. You can see it here. He would have got tagged in here, and I believe he would have got tagged in this game as well. And when he doesn't get tagged, when they tag Rosie, he goes off. And then he's also got Carlton. If we go to Carlton, they've got Chincotta back as well. Tag, there you go. That's why I don't want to touch it. And then you've got, obviously, let's look at the last couple games against Melbourne. That big 148, 79, 108. So yeah, I just don't think he's going to go electric against Melbourne with Langan hanging off him. So that's why I'm going to say that I'm probably going to pass on him and go for a Luke Jackson instead. And then quickly here, just looking at Brett Daniels here for a second, you can see that Brett Daniels forward price is 664k, has that 104 break even. So basically, I think he's a wait till post buy type of territory. Just because if we look at him quickly in the price generator here, I think he's going to be maybe 700k post buy, and 700k post buy for Brett Daniels could be an absolute steal. As we get towards developing that sort of 23rd primo, if we look at him and say he's going to average, say 90 for the next 3 weeks, he goes minus 9k, 18k, 31k. So that'll be round 14, that'll be round 15, that'll be round 17. So this will be round 17, the first game out of the buys, and he'll be 704k. You'll have 3 weeks of data if him going electric, well, 3.5 games of data if him going at sort of that 90, 95 pace. And then you'll be able to make the move. You may have to make the move if he goes 105. Let's just say he's introduced to the midfield. He goes 105 and you have to make the move here when he's sitting on the buy, after he's at his buy and he's all clean. That's when you make the move at 704k. That's an easy up. There. So yeah, that is basically what I'm looking at for the likes of Brett Daniels. And I think that's about it. Let's quickly go to the outs here and just look at the obvious outs. Levi, yep, he's done his job. He's a guy that will go for me. 762k now. He's basically just going to be losing money. Riley Bice on the buy probably gets dropped, or a big potential to be dropped next week for the likes of Errol Goulden. Xavier Lindsay as well. Yep. Probably time for him to go as well, just because I know he's playing, but was subbed out last week, and this break even's getting to really hard territory. Hugh Boxall, understand that. Matty Roberts on the buy, I think he's done enough. I was lucky to trade him last week as well, although it did cost me having to hold the Trent Rivers, which I would have probably rather Matty Roberts over Rivers if he played. That would have been the obvious move. O'Hawley's still injured. Nick Dacos, trading him out. Don't know about that, to be honest with you. I don't think he's really he's at 1.024 million, so he could, but I wouldn't. Davidson, understand that. Him and Kako, probably just horrific. Would you be trading Chad? What's he going last 5? I wouldn't be trading him. I think just people are probably frustrated that he's gone 88.7 the last 3, but I think he's in for a big game soon. Peatling is suspended. Isaac Rankin, I think I'm going to give another week before I decide to trade, because with Peatling out, it could actually boost him up for this week. Then he heads into the buy, and he could be a buy trade here, especially if I grab Luke Jackson, etc. And then that's pretty much that, I would say, for the trade targets for fantasy. And I guess I will see you guys in the next video. But before you do that, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload. And I'll see you guys back for the Supercoach trade targets soon. Bye, guys.